Well, we finally made it to the export dialog in Lightroom. We're going to take these three images and assume we're entering them into the monthly digital competition for the club. So I'm going to take these first two that are in landscape orientation, and you'll see why in a minute, and we're going to export these two at once. So we'll go up to we've selected them. They're both selected, so we're going to go up to File, and we're going to select Export. At the top, you see where are we going to export this to. What's selected is hard drive, but it could be email or it could be some other program. I'm going to select hard drive. Now this doesn't have to be a physical drive connected to your computer. It could be a network drive or a cloud storage drive like a OneDrive in the Windows world or iCloud in the Mac world. For the export location, I want to export to a specific folder, and you can choose where that folder is, and I have my choice is pictures, which is logical. You can also put it in a specific subfolder in pictures and it will create it for you. So if we click there and we'll type in, and let's assume this is the June competition coming up. So we put June in here, MCC_June. That folder doesn't exist, so it will create it for me. Along with the export location, we could add this back into our catalog or re-export it in. I never do that because there's no reason to bring it in because I have the original high-resolution photo in my catalog that I can use to export out anytime I want. And then this is what to do if the same file name already exists in our target location, and I have it selected as ask what to do. In other words, it'll ask me, what do you want to do? I don't want to select overwrite without warning because something's probably gone wrong if I'm exporting the same file. The next area is the file naming. What do we want to name these files on export? So we have several choices. We could have the original file name. One of the things I like to do is a custom file name, and it will count them out for me, one of whatever. And so I'm going to name these all MCC June. And it will add a number next to it, 3 of, how many ever you're exporting at once. And I want my starting number to be 1, and it gives you an example right here. Here is what you want your extension in this case a .jpeg, whether you want it in lowercase or uppercase, it really doesn't matter. I tend to keep it in lowercase. Next is video. We have no videos, so I have that collapsed. Now here's our file setting. I'm going to export in JPEG, which is most of the time, whether you're entering our competition or some other competition, is the most common format asked for. And we have a quality slider over here. I keep it at 100. Any place from 90 to 100 is fine. I'm not that concerned with file size, so 100 is where I keep it. Now, we've talked about this before, our color space. The color space is going to be whoever's requesting the file, the color space that they want. In the case of the MCC competition, it's going to be sRGB. Most competitions are that way. Sometimes there's competitions that accept Adobe RGB, which is going to be a wider gamut, and if they do, that would be the one to select. But we're going to keep it at sRGB right now. This checkbox here can be used to limit the overall file size. So if you check it, you can put in the maximum size that can be created. Sometimes I run into competitions where they specify dimensions that they want, but also that the file can't exceed a certain size. So you notice that the quality is grayed out, but what it's going to go by, it's going to calculate its own quality by how big you say this file is. For the MCC competition, that's not really a consideration. So now to image sizing. How big do we want to make this image? Well, our projector, our new projector, has a maximum resolution of 1920 pixels on the long side by 1200 pixels on the short side, which is a 16:10 aspect ratio. What you want to do for a projector is you want one side to match and the other side to be equal to or smaller than the resolution. And that's going to depend on the aspect ratio. In our situation, for these landscapes, what we're going to do is we're going to say the short edge is 1200, which is the maximum of our projector. And if you calculate this out using the 1.5 ratio for a standard DSLR image, that is going to create an 1800 by 1200 pixel image, which will fit on the projector and its screen. As we spoke about before, this resolution, as far as being a digital image, does not matter one bit. You can put whatever you want here. It's not going to make a difference. This checkbox, don't enlarge, means that you're really wanting the photograph, the image, to be smaller than it's contained in your catalog. And don't use your algorithm to enlarge it. And that should not be a problem with a projector, because any camera, even camera phones, take larger pictures than 1920 by 1080. Excuse me, by 1200. So that takes care of the sizing. Now, one thing to note here is if you see this width by height, you might think that you can put in any number and that's what it'll size it to. But remember, we said that Lightroom respects the aspect ratio. It will not. It will take one of these sides and it will calculate the other. The problem is it doesn't give you any feedback here. You don't know that's what it's doing. So that's one of the reasons I'm either going to select short edge or long edge. Next is output sharpening. I never check anything here because I've sharpened the image like I want it before I enter it in competition. If you did check it, you can choose either screen, matte paper, or glossy paper, and then high, medium, and low for sharpening. But that to me is leaving it up to Lightroom when I've done a lot of work on how I want it to look. So I never have Lightroom sharpen my output. Next is metadata, and that is how much information is included in this. I have all metadata for our competition here at the Memphis Camera Club so that when we display the work, we can show what camera and what the settings were. When I enter other competitions, a lot of times I put only copyright and contact info only. So the copyright and my information go with the image. So for our competition, we're going to leave that at all metadata. Okay, next is watermarking. For any competition, there's going to be a prohibition against watermarking because they're going to be blind competitions. But I'll just show you this because in exporting your images in other situations, you may want to create a watermark on your work. Right here is simple copyright watermark. If you go down to edit, what it does is it just takes your name and puts the copyright symbol. You have some choices on what kind of fonts you want or where that copyright might be located. You can also do a graphic type copyright. So if you've created a PNG or JPEG file with a logo or something, you can choose that. Now I would recommend PNG, so it maintains a transparency if you have a background transparency. And again, for a competition, we don't want any watermarks on our images, so we're going to take that off. Then the last thing is post-processing. In other words, what to do after it's exported the file. I have selected here Show and Explore, so after it's exported the file to our specified folder, it will bring up File Explorer in Windows or Finder in Mac. You have other situations. You can go directly to Photoshop. You can pick another application, or you can do nothing, where it just exports it and that's it. So we're going to do Show and Explore so we can see a positive from the results. We're ready to export, but one more thing. Instead of having to set this up over and over for exporting, this would be a great occasion to do a preset. And over here on the left, you can see a list of presets. And there is a folder called User Presets. There's nothing in here right now. And I am going to create a preset for this situation. But to make it a little more generic, first I'm going to go up to Put It in Subfolder. I'm going to take the name out of that, and I'm going to take the name out of the file I want to call it. And then I'm going to say Add, and I will name this MCC Competition Landscape, because I'm going to have something slightly different when I do portraits. And so that's created right now. So anytime I bring up my export, I can just click this. It will fill everything out except what subfolder I want it in. I'll have to fill that out. And what naming I might use for the file. Okay, so now we're ready to export. Hit the export button. You can see the results showing up here in the File Explorer. Now, if we right-click on one of these images and select Properties and go to Details, you can see the dimensions. We specified the short side, and it created, based on the aspect ratio, an 1800 by 1200 image. You can see the DPI or PPI appearing here, but it doesn't make a difference. What color space we're in, sRGB, and here's our metadata. It was on a Canon 5D Mark III, and here are the settings. So these two images, in our case, are ready to submit to Visual Pursuits to upload for a competition. Now let's go back and do one more export real quickly, and that is on this portrait-oriented one. So we've selected it. We'll go back to Export. I'm going to select my landscape, but we're going to do one other different thing here. Instead of the short edge being 1200, we're going to say the long edge is 1200, because in a portrait-oriented image, of course, the longer edge is the height and the shorter edge is the length, and 1200 is the maximum of our projector, so we're going to do that. Now, before I fill in the rest of it, I am going to add another preset, and this one I'm going to call MCC Competition Portrait. And now I've got one that has this long edge already set. We'll put in MCC underscore June and MCC underscore June. But here what I want to do is I already have a 1 of 2 and a 2 of 2. So we're going to start our number at 3. And we will hit export. Okay. If we do a right click, again looking at the properties here, looking at details, and you notice that we get a 1200 by 900, and you might say, well, wait a second, that doesn't work out with a calculation aspect ratio of 1.5. That's true, because this was a micro four thirds camera I used on this, and it has an aspect ratio of 1.3, and for 1.3 this is correct. So Lightroom correctly calculated this. All right, so now we're ready to submit all 3 of these photos to our competition. Have exported them successfully out of Lightroom.